Can we prove that God exists? Well, it kind of depends what we mean by proof. True proof only exists in maths. I can 100% prove to you that 2 + 2 is always going to equal 4. But even scientists need a certain amount of faith. In order to even do science, they have to believe that there's an order to the world, that things will react in a certain way because forces like gravity are at work. Proof in science is similar to a law court. Lawyers speak of proof beyond reasonable doubt. They can't mathematically prove that someone did the crime, but they can build up a case using things like confession, eyewitnesses, and documentary evidence. And it's this type of proof that I think we can offer when it comes to God. So here are some of those arguments or proofs, if you will. The argument from morality. The idea that we have an inbuilt sense of right and wrong. That we have an instinctive sense, for example, that rape is always wrong. This points us to a law inside of us, which in turn points to a lawgiver, someone outside of ourselves who's put that law inside us. Then the aesthetic argument, which is basically just a fancy word for the idea that art and beauty point to something outside of us. A character in a book called Chasing Francis, about a church pastor who loses his faith, says this: "The object of all great art is beauty, and it makes us nostalgic for God." Francis Collins, who's one of the world's leading scientists, used to be an atheist, and the thing that finally convinced him that God existed was looking at a beautiful frozen waterfall. Then you've got the argument from desire. The feeling that there's more to life than this points to the fact that we don't belong here. C.S. Lewis said, "If I find in myself a desire which no experience in this world can satisfy, the most probable explanation is that I was made for another world." Then we've got the argument from cosmology, another fancy word which comes from the Greek for world, cosmos, and study, logios. The fact that the existence of the universe points to the existence of a God who created it. When scientists began to talk about the Big Bang theory in the early 1930s, atheists tried to get rid of that theory because it supported the Christian idea that the universe had a beginning. And if the universe had a beginning, then something or someone must have kick-started that process. Then you've got the argument from design. Even atheist scientists talk about the universe being finely tuned. If a tiny change was made in something like the gases in the air or how close the Earth is to the sun, then life would be impossible. Is everything perfectly in balance because of chance? Or could it be that someone has put it all together, someone's finely tuned it? And look at how complicated humans are. Could this maybe point to a God who designed us? Isaac Newton said, "In the absence of any other proof, the thumb alone would convince me of God's existence." Then you've got the argument for resurrection. This needs a whole other video, but if Jesus really rose from the dead, then this shows that he must have been God. And finally, what I think is one of the most important arguments, one of the most important proofs, is the argument from personal experience. Ask any Christian how they know that God exists, and they will have their own unique story that they can share with you. At the end of the day, it's up to you to decide if any of these proofs hold up in a court of law, and whether you think they're worth putting your faith in.